seemed like 50 pounds of chocolate. And that'll be my breakfast.
Are they the same?
Right. Yeah. They're in there.
Ready? Good.
Yep.
Thank you.
You got energy, protein.
That's fine. We're good. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here this morning. We have an interesting topic to discuss this morning. On behalf of the Senate Ag and Rural Affairs Committee, I'd like to welcome you here today to as well as our testifiers and the viewers who are joining us to discuss the importance of conservation partnerships, but to elaborate on what experience Penn State Ag Progress Days has to offer. So thank you to Penn State for hosting us once again this year, and as well as using this facility to have this hearing. As always, I appreciate the opportunity to be here with my Democratic Chair, Senator Judy Schwank, and House and Agriculture and Rural Affairs Chairs, Eddie Day-Paczynski and Dan Miles. So thank you guys for being here as well. Also today joined by some other members of the House and Senate Ag and Rural Affairs Committees. At this time, I'd like to have Eddie Day-Paczynski say a few words.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to come together at this incredible event and share some thoughts and concerns that we have and listen to everyone so that we know what direction we need to take. So it's always an honor for me being with my colleagues here. I want to thank you all for joining us today as we convene this hearing and the importance of conservation practices and partnerships on the farms throughout Pennsylvania. I think all of us that are in this room today will say that we are blessed here in Pennsylvania, and I mean that sincerely because we are very fortunate. We have incredible resources here. Anthracite coal, well, that has nothing to do with agriculture, but it was a part of our history and continues to be. We have incredible water, we have incredible soil, we have incredible forests, hardwoods, and so on. And as a result, we need to make sure that we preserve them and manage them in an appropriate way. Just as agriculture is critical to keeping us fed and our economy growing, it also plays a major role in protecting and enriching our environment. Pennsylvania farmers have a long tradition of stewardship, and today we will discuss how conservation practices can enhance the tradition, ensuring the health of our soil, the purity of our water, and the sustainability of our farms and environment for generations to come. As we face the challenges from changing weather patterns, soil degradation, and water pollution, the role of appropriate conservation practices becomes even more critical. Through public and private collaboration, innovation, and commitment, Pennsylvania is empowering our farmers to continue their essential work while safeguarding the natural resources we are all blessed with and that make all of this possible. Pennsylvania has several programs to help plan and implement conservation practices on the farms across our Commonwealth, including the Agriculture Conservation Assistance Program and the Conservation Excellence Grant Program. As we will hear today, these are just two examples of initiatives to help our farmers with our on-the-farm conservation efforts. I want to sincerely thank our testifiers this morning and look forward to learning more on how our federal, state, and local officials are partnering with our ag industry to build a more sustainable, resilient, healthy future for all our Pennsylvania citizens. And I thank you once again for all being here today. Mr. Chairman, back to you.
Thank you, Representative Paczynski. This time I'd like to have our honored guest, Secretary Redding, say some remarks, have some other remarks for us. Secretary Redding.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and chairs, members, thank you. I want to express our appreciation on behalf of the governor for your continued support of Pennsylvania agriculture. I mean, it's really important, Representative, as you note, of history, but also our future, and thank you for that. I want to express appreciation, particularly on the focus on conservation. I like and was really inspired by the title of today's meeting, a sweet investment in conservation. We'll hear more about that. But as I thought about the things that are sweet to me, I immediately thought of Hershey's Take 5 and the candy bar and the 5 ingredients. And there are 5 really critical ingredients to conservation. One is the partnership that was mentioned, and I think about it often in terms of the people, right? There's a really critical ingredient from local government, local leaders, and county action plans, and conservation districts, and members of the House and the Senate, and our partners, the USDA and EPA, and then bring in the business and the nonprofits. Certainly the ingredient of capital, and the capital is both financial capital and human capital. And we have seen that, really the importance of investments in projects and best management practices, but you need folks who can actually do that. And that is part of the capital investment. The foundational laws of Pennsylvania. We skip over that many times, but to think back of where we were 30 plus years ago to where we now are today, right? You've got nutrient management and odor management and our appropriations and manure management acts, and those things are really foundational. And then you put on top of that things like the State Conservation Commission creation, and you'll hear from our leaders on that today. The ingredients of Penn State, and I credit often the work that they've done on the PA and the balance. And many of you have been part of that conversation over the years, but I look at what came from that and the themes that were identified as part of the process that gave us an opportunity to talk about how you target resources. And seeing Senator Yaw, I feel like this is an appropriation hearing, and I was always guaranteed a question about how do you target resources, right? That was a really important question that gets to where the issues are and how you do that. But that whole effort allowed us to talk about the two co-equal goals of both water quality and viable farms. And then the fifth and probably most important ingredient are the farmers. At the end of the day, the laws are right, the structures are right, the capital is there, the people are there. But you need somebody on the other end who owns the land and, quite frankly, is the largest investor in conservation as a person who owns the land. And that has to be recognized and supported and acknowledged. I'm pleased today to be on this panel with producers who do that and honor that. And honor the deep culture of stewardship that is alive and well, and really our future depends on that culture. So honored to be with the producers, appreciate them all the time for what they do, because it's not only the conservation worry they have, it's the jobs, it's the food, it's the environment, it's the people, it's the families, the things that we really allow and expect, of our community. So honored to be here on behalf of the governor. Thank you for what you do and the investments you've made and the leadership you've provided over time that allow us to be here. And just as Hershey makes this take five, you put all those things together, and it really is sweet. It's sweet for conservation. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Secretary Redding, for your comments this morning. I know you have to leave to do some other things today. We thank you for your being here. Today on our panel, we have Brett Reinford from Land O'Lakes Farms, a farmer member. We have the Honorable Adam Ortiz, EPA Region 3 Administrator, Natalie Crack, the Manager of State Government Relations from the Hershey Company, who we thank you for the Hershey's and the kisses here up front. Thank you very much. Gina Beckett from the Pennsylvania State Director and Agricultural Program Director of the Alliance of Chesapeake Bay, your Honorable Doug Wolfgang, Executive Secretary of the State Conservation Commission, and your Honorable Denise Coleman, USDA NRCS. This time we're going to have Brett Reinford lead us off with some comments, and I would just make a quick comment here. We have to be done by about 11:20 because we have lunch at 11:30 across the driveway here. So if you keep your comments short because we have questions and stuff, so you don't have to read all the remarks you made. Just highlight them, however you want to do it. But I'm letting everybody know I run the train on time. So Mr. Reinford, go ahead.
Sounds good. Well, thank you, Chairman Vogel and Chairman Paczynski, and members of the House and Senate Ag Committee. I do appreciate the opportunity to be here and to talk about conservation on our farm, which is something near and dear to me. So my name is Brett Reinford. I'm a partner on Reinford Farms. It's a multi-generational family farm. I'm now a partner with my two brothers. We're a dairy farm about 40 minutes south of here in Juniata County. And we farm about 1,300 acres and have about 750 dairy cows. Additionally, we are proud members of the Land O'Lakes Co-op, which represents about 2,700 agriculture folks around the country, dairy producers, ag producers, as well as ag retailers. In Pennsylvania, there's over 700 dairy members, part of Land O'Lakes. I just want to start by thanking the committee and your staff for taking the time today to coordinate this event and to talk about conservation. As a dairy farmer, we know firsthand that we play a very important role of feeding the world, and we also need to take care of the environment. Being part of the Land O'Lakes Co-op system provides us the support and guidance we need to help farmers create a more sustainable future and to ensure a safe and plentiful food supply. For example, our farm embarked on a journey in 2008 to really focus on sustainability and environmental health. We built a food waste digester as well as manure digester to help recycle food waste as well as to recycle all of our manure and turn it into electricity. Now, with the help of the Sustainable PA initiative, we were able to invest in some manure storage technology with the help of Hershey, the EPA, and everyone actually on this panel played a part in helping to fund our manure storage lagoon. It doesn't sound that fancy, but we put a cover on it, and what that cover helps us to do is to collect all the extra methane that would be released off of just storing manure. And so I was talking to Natalie last night, and I said the difference between us being able to fund the extra environmental benefits, which is putting the cover on the manure pit, came from Hershey as well as the EPA with some of the public and private funding that we received from them. So thank you. We are continuing to look at additional conservation practices on our farms, and there is lots of opportunity to improve and do better. And we are so thankful for your support, and I also want to say thank you for passing the Ag Innovation Fund in the budget this year, and looking forward to fielding any questions that you might have about our project and what we're doing and what other farmers are doing here in Pennsylvania. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ortiz.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and the many chairmen and chairwomen and members of the committee. It's a tremendous pleasure to be here on behalf of the Environmental Protection Agency, and good to see many of you again. And it's an honor to be on this panel. And in the 3 years I've been in this job, I know every member of this panel, and some of us, we work very well committed to conservation in Pennsylvania. And it's so critical because we know in this administration that farmers are our frontline environmentalists. So they're frontline conservationists with a commitment to the land, to pass it on to future generations. However, for too long, the blame and the burden of pollution in our waterways, including the Chesapeake Bay, has been levied on farmers, yet the farmers and the ag community have not been provided the support or solutions to make gains as other industries have. But across the region, and particularly here in Pennsylvania, we see farmers willing to step up, but they need resources to further their conservation work by dealing with drought, market disruptions, inflation, the rising costs of fertilizers and construction materials, and animal disease. We're very aware of that, and we know that farmers cannot do this alone. We're all in this together. But with the size of Pennsylvania and more than 85,000 miles of streams, the scale is huge. It's immense. And we know that with the many watersheds, from the Ohio to the Delaware, we have to work together if we're going to accelerate progress, and we are seeing the results. And there's never been a better time. There's historic investments from the federal government, there's historic investments from the Commonwealth, and I have to thank Chairman Yaw for his leadership and others in establishing historic programming and funding, and the results are evident. Last month, the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science gave the Chesapeake Bay its highest grade in more than 22 years. And the gains, round of applause. I just want that to sink in. You know, that's an incredible achievement because many of us have known for a long time it's been a source of frustration how the restoration has been stuck, but it's accelerating. And who is leading the acceleration? The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And it doesn't happen by accident. That grade did not happen by accident. It happened because people are working together and committed. And I'm mindful of your instruction to be quick, so I just want to point out a few things. You know, EPA's role has been changing. Historically, we've been seen as an enforcer and focused on compliance and permitting, and that's an important role. We have to carry out our responsibilities under the Clean Water Act, We work closely with DEP and PDA to do so, but we know if we're really going to achieve restoration, we have to go far beyond that. We have to partner, we have to invest, we have to provide technical assistance, and we have to be creative and find other ways other than just a stick, which only gets you so far. And that's why we're so pleased to be in the second year of our partnership with the Hershey Company, with Land O'Lakes, the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay, and NIFWIF to give Pennsylvania dairies a $2 million boost in conservation funding to help install practices like Brett outlined. But as I stated earlier, we cannot do it alone. And it's not just about the Chesapeake Bay or the local waters, but it's also about adding value for the farmer and their products. Customers want a sustainable product. They're more concerned with ever in how our food and products are produced. So by adding conservation practices, we also give farmers an option for the kind of products that they want to introduce to a market that is more and more committed to sustainable stewardship. So by working with Hershey, Land O'Lakes, and other companies that we'll be announcing as time goes on in the next few months, we're going to help farmers get resources that they otherwise wouldn't get through traditional means. So we're excited to be here at this table. We're excited to be here as colleagues and friends with producers across the state, with legislators, and with the state government. Even that in and of itself is historic. So we're truly all in this together. Whether we're federal agencies or whether we're state agencies, whether we're in the legislative branch or the executive branch, nonprofit organizations or producers and farmers on the ground, we're all in it together. So today, a C+, but in the not too distant future, we're going to be getting an A as we continue to work together. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Natalie Crack from the Hershey Company.
Good morning, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here with all of you on behalf of the Hershey Company to discuss our sweet investment in our dairy supply chain. The Hershey Company is proud of our special relationship with and connection to Pennsylvania. It's our home. Our corporate headquarters are here. We have 4 manufacturing plants in Pennsylvania. Our beloved Hershey's Chocolate World, which is our factory experience and tourist destination. And we have over 6,000 talented employees working at our plants and our headquarters in Pennsylvania. But the Commonwealth is also home to a very important part of our supply chain, and that is the dairy industry. Land O'Lakes is our largest dairy supplier, and fresh fluid milk is shipped into our West Hershey plant every single day. We use about 4% of the Commonwealth's annual fluid milk production in our milk chocolate. The Hershey Company has another connection to the dairy industry. We also manufacture about 1 million pounds of Hershey's syrup every day. That translates into 24 million glasses of chocolate milk. So the good news is there is no shortage of ways to enjoy Hershey products and support Pennsylvania's dairy industry. We also strive to be good stewards, good corporate neighbors, and part of that commitment is looking for ways to reduce our pollution into the environment and also looking at the ways that our supply chain impacts the environment. So when we look at the environmental impacts in Pennsylvania and the dairy industry, our goals are to improve water quality and to reduce methane emissions on the farms that ship milk to us, farms like Brett's. So to do that, we invested $1 million in Land O'Lakes, and the Alliance was able to use that funding to bring another $1 million of federal funding from EPA for a total of $2 million invested in cleaner water, air, and healthier soil in Pennsylvania. So I'm hopeful that my presence here and the success of this project helps you all think about how to leverage other public-private partnerships. We hope others are inspired to do what we have done. And you know, I think we at Hershey are unique in that our company was founded and still operates in Milton Hershey's backyard in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And we're certainly uniquely committed to the communities in which we live and serve. So that's Hershey, Lancaster, Hazleton, and the Land O'Lakes milk shed that ships milk to us. But even for a company like mine, when you're talking about these types of investments and projects, you really need to frame it through a lens of what is the return on investment, how is this helping to future-proof our business and our supply chains, and you need to prove what the impact will be to the P&L and our bottom lines. At the end of the day, the Hershey Company, we still have a fiduciary obligation to our shareholders, so there has to be a corporate Hershey nexus for it to be a good business investment. And so for this project, we have expectations of how we want our suppliers to reflect our value of being good stewards of the environment. And when you're working with farmers on whom we depend, we don't have a business without farmers. But that also means we can't make demands on farmers like Brett to implement new practices without providing funds to help them succeed. So we believe it is in our corporate best interest to address water quality and reduce methane emissions within our supply chain, and that means that we have to subsidize these projects and invest in our supply chain. It's in my testimony, but I think it's important to reiterate that this investment was not a charitable contribution. We certainly have a robust charitable giving program. We invest millions of dollars in grants to eligible charitable entities every year. But this $1 million investment was corporate money made through our dairy procurement program directly to Land O'Lakes and their farmer members to fund the specific practices that offer a return on investment to us by accelerating our corporate environmental goals. And these are the things that our consumers and our shareholders really want to see. The public sector match from EPA, from potential opportunities from other state and federal funding sources, that match is very important because at the end of the day, we all benefit from cleaner water and air and healthier soil. And that means that our dollars get to go further and can fill gaps that sometimes state and federal funds maybe can't reach. So I think if you're looking for ways to unlock corporate dollars for similar projects, the program requirements also have to be flexible enough for us to accomplish some of our environmental objectives and to meet the farmers' needs too. I think that's really critical. The flexibility is so important for others to step up and hopefully make similar investments. So I'm excited about this project. There's real excitement in the business about this project. We hope we'll be able to build on this foundation moving forward, and we know that we can't do that without the partnership of willing farmers, enthusiastic state and federal government support, and NGO technical assistance and leadership like we've had from the Alliance. So thank you to the committees for your commitment to Pennsylvania agriculture and manufacturers and for the investments that you've made available, and thank you to our public sector partners for all of your help to match public and private dollars for a very sweet investment. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenna Beckett from the Ag Director for the Alliance for Chesapeake Bay.
Good morning. Chairs Pasinski, Vogel, Mao, and Schwenk, members of the House. Is this guy not on? Oh, no, bring it a little closer. There we go. I'll start over. Chairs Pasinski, Vogel, Mao, and Schwenk, members of the House and Senate Agriculture Committees, it is an honor to be here with you all to discuss the important topic of conservation. My name is Jenna Beckett, and I serve as the Pennsylvania Ag Director and the Ag Program Director at the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay. And also, I feel like it's important to share that I'm a proud Penn State alum as well. Since 1971, the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay has served as the backbone for action-oriented impact across collaboration, and collaboration across our watershed. With 4 strategically placed offices and 4 focused programs, we're positioned to solve downstream problems with upstream solutions. Through boots-on-the-ground solutions, technical assistance, and expertise, we prevent pollution where it begins, on the land before it reaches our rivers and the Chesapeake Bay. By collaborating with like-minded individuals and organizations, the Alliance becomes a catalyst, building the capacity of others to join and accelerate clean water in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. I lead the Alliance's Ag Program team and am based out of our Lancaster office. We build partnerships with the corporate sector to accelerate support for farmers to implement conservation practices in Pennsylvania and in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. We've partnered with Hershey and Land O'Lakes to work together since 2021 on an initiative called Sustainable Dairy PA. The initiative takes a collaborative, industry-led, and public sector-supported approach to accelerate on-farm conservation efforts with local dairy farmers. As we've heard today, Hershey has invested $1 million in our dairy farmers in Pennsylvania, and this investment of private dollars allows the Alliance to fill gaps and create incentives for farmers to fully utilize available federal and state resources. EPA has matched Hershey's dollars with an additional $1 million through the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. We use the money from Hershey and EPA to stack on top of EQIP, RCPP, ACAP, and other public sources of funding in order to use resources as efficiently and effectively as possible. Farm Bill funding is absolutely critical support for farmers to install conservation practices, and we cannot continue to accelerate work on the ground without it. We're also very excited to now have the opportunity to support farmers in Pennsylvania with ACAP funding. Thank you. Hershey's dollars help us bring more farmers to the table to take full advantage of federal and state funding for conservation practices. We know that it is critically important that we look at the agriculture industry-wide when it comes to solving our environmental problems, not just point our fingers at the farmers. We can leverage resources and expertise across the supply chain and find solutions that work for everyone. Seek a win-win-win for the farmer, the corporate supply chain, consumers, and our local rivers and streams. Our partnership develops solutions that take into account the priorities of our farmers and our corporate partners. We work very hard alongside our farmers to keep the process as simple and easy as possible, while we also prioritize practices that we know our farmers need and will help our corporate partners meet their sustainability goals. Historically, the responsibility for reducing pollution has fallen to the farmer, but this partnership supports clean water with the supply chain playing a role in this responsibility. This is a robust, sustainable, and responsible way for us all to be part of the solution. We have landed on stronger and more impactful solutions because of this special partnership that has brought all parties to the table. This is a special moment of corporate leadership. The importance of corporations to step up as leaders in this space, making commitments and investing dollars into real work on the ground. Hershey and Land O'Lakes are leading the country and will no doubt create ripple effects across the nation and create peer pressure for others to follow. We know our region is special. Our farms are family-owned and significantly smaller than the average U.S. farm. Our dairy farmers are also especially unique and vulnerable, as close to 70% of the Land O'Lakes members that supply to Hershey belong to the Plains sect. In order for us to make equitable change across all levels of the supply chain, we need to provide support in ways that meet this community where they are in implementing important breast management practices. This is not the end. This is just the beginning of corporations driving change in partnership with government and NGO partners. The silver bullet here is how we all, NGOs, dairy cooperatives, and their corporate customers, federal and state agencies, and farmers working together toward a common goal: economic vitality and cleaner rivers and streams in the state of Pennsylvania. I want to thank leaders at EPA, USDA, NRCS, the Commonwealth, and members of this esteemed committee for continuing to prioritize funding that works for farmers in the ag industry in PA. I also want to thank Hershey and Land O'Lakes for your incredible leadership as corporate partners, and thank our farmers for, at the end of the day, being willing to do something with everything that we work so hard to make happen. I am incredibly grateful for the opportunity to talk with you all about our partnership today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Doug Wolfgang, Executive Secretary of the PA Conservation Commission.
Yeah,
Doug.
good morning, Chairman Paczynski, Chairman Vogel, Chairman Mal, Chairwoman Schwenk, and members of the committee. On behalf of the Departments of Agriculture and Environmental Protection and the State Conservation Commission, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. The Commission operates under joint authorities of the Departments of Agriculture and Environmental Protection to provide funding, resources, and oversight for 66 county conservation districts across the Commonwealth. It's a network of over 1,000 individuals across the state who champion conservation at the grassroots level. We strive to find the common ground on issues that lie at the intersection of agriculture and the environment, and we rely, in addition to the districts, on a network of individuals, agencies, stakeholder groups to help achieve our mission. Pennsylvania's conservation partnership is far-reaching and will continue to grow over time. A handful of programs that we administer out of the Commission for cost sharing and best management practices for technical assistance, financial assistance for farmers include, of course, the Ag Conservation Assistance Program, Conservation Excellence Grant Program, provided for under the Pennsylvania Farm Bill back in 2019 for investments in the Chesapeake Bay watershed, Resource Enhancement and Protection Program, a flagship program of the Commission, Nutrient Odor Management Program. We're a leader in the nation in that effort in terms of having nutrient management plans for farms to ensure that nutrient losses are minimized and farm viability occurs. Sustainable Agriculture Board, which is a relatively new initiative, and the Dirt and Gravel and Low Volume Roads Program. But first, we'd like to express gratitude to the joint committees on behalf of the Department of Ag and Environmental Protection again for securing $50 million in funding under the Clean Streams Fund in this year's budget. These funds will ensure that the widely successful ACAP and other programs will continue in future years. This is huge for us and for the Conservation Partnership, and we are extremely grateful, and thank you for your work in making sure that that happened. The original $154 million provided for the program as part of the Clean Streams Fund legislation has been a game changer for us by creating a clear path for achieving goals for viable farms and clean water. Farm and environmental groups alike are applauding Pennsylvania's efforts within the state and outside of the state in the Chesapeake Bay watershed because of the state funding and this related surge in momentum that we're seeing across the state. In these past 2 years, the Commission established program guidelines and secured 66 signed delegation agreements with conservation districts committing $141 million for ag BMPs. Of that, $88 million now has been obligated through signed contracts with farmers. That's roughly 900 farmers across the state who have signed contracts to install practices, and approximately 1,400 farmers in this first full program year have applied for funding, which really demonstrates the widespread need for the funds, and farmers by large want to install conservation, but prior to ACAP were limited by cost of labor and availability of technical assistance. So to address these needs, an entire infrastructure has been built around ACAP, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say about the new center that we created using ACAP funds since we're at Penn State in collaboration with Penn State Extension and with Denise Coleman and NRCS. We really feel that this new center will help to build capacity for technical assistance. It's a national issue, not just here over time, but we also feel that it's going to help make Pennsylvania a premier place for young people who are entering the field of conservation and will want to study and stay on for jobs afterwards. So that to us is very exciting. So just, I mean, real quickly, we've talked about return on investment, and I think it's worth talking about here with ACAP and other conservation investments that we're making, what it means. First off, for the farmer, these practices improve soil health, animal health, productivity, crop yields. We've heard from farmers across the state who have said that ACAP was the deciding factor, especially when bundled with other cost share funding like EQIP, for example, provided by Denise and NRCS. And the return on investment for the farmer needs to continue being a focal point for the program moving forward, especially as a new generation of young farmers is poised to take over farming operations. And of course, successful farms means a thriving agricultural industry, so the return on investment for agriculture is significant. Goes without saying, $132.5 billion total economic impact, 1 in 10 jobs. We're investing in the future of that with ACAP. So ACAP then, in turn, is an investment in food security, and that has to be part of the conservation story moving forward as well. We're producing farms that are viable and sustainable. And of course, I would also be remiss by not also referencing that we're leading the nation in farmland preservation and continue to do that. And there's a direct linkage with these conservation investments we're making, and many of those investments being on farms that we know will always be in agriculture forever. But lastly, the return on investment for environment, of course, has been a driving force. Pennsylvania is blessed, as it was mentioned, with over 80,000 miles of streams, creeks, and rivers, and it's proven that these practices will result in a cleaner, ultimately, Chesapeake Bay. According to EPA and DEP, the agriculture sector in Pennsylvania reduced more than 5 times the nitrogen delivered to the Chesapeake Bay since 2019 than in the previous 10-year period. So again, more than 5 times the nitrogen delivered to the bay since 2019 than it did in the previous 10-year period. That stat is shared a lot by Jill Whitcomb from DEP, and DEP does a great job of advocating for Pennsylvania agriculture and ensuring that our message is told among the Bay leadership. Governor Shapiro, as it was mentioned, joined Secretary Redding, Acting Secretary Shirley, Adam, and others, other Bay states to celebrate that report card of that C+, which was a big deal. You know, you think initially C+ isn't something worth celebrating, but it really is. Just to look at the progression of where we've become, and then also to note that Pennsylvania in those upper reaches or lower reaches of the Bay, I guess it would be upper reaches, is where the most significant improvements were made, earning us a B-. So all good news and a good story for Pennsylvania and for Pennsylvania farmers and conservation and our partnership. It's been mentioned, but technology and innovation funded under the new Ag Innovation Fund will help to solve some of the problems with water quality in the Chesapeake Bay and other areas moving forward, and help our farms compete in the marketplace and help Pennsylvania attain local water quality goals. But just wrapping this up, want to thank you again. We also, the focus of this hearing is on conservation partnerships and on public-private partnerships. The Commission's network is growing and will increasingly include private companies like Hershey Company that support clean water, climate, and sustainable farming initiatives. We applaud Hershey Company and Alliance for Chesapeake Bay, Turkey Hill, Maryland Virginia Milk Co-op, and others who work in this space and invest in their supply chain. We really feel this is has a lot of potential, tons of potential moving forward. For farmers, value-based supply chain presents a market opportunity as consumers are increasingly interested in knowing that food is produced in a responsible and sustainable way, and in some cases are willing to pay more for that product. And Secretary Vilsack several weeks ago had mentioned about the Generation Z is focused heavily on that. So with this in mind, the Commission dedicated $3 million of last year's EPA Most Effective Basin Award, thank you, Adam, to enhance our public-private partnerships through the Conservation Excellence Grant Program. So we partnered in this first year with projects in Lancaster Farmland Trust, with the Alliance for Chesapeake Bay, Franklin County Conservation District, and Center County Conservation District. But again, just in summary, it's an exciting time to be involved in conservation, and we're grateful for the opportunity to talk with you about the success of ACAP and the importance of our partnerships. It's meaningful work, and collectively we're positioning Pennsylvania for a bright future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wolfgang. Denise Coleman, next up from NRCS.
Thank you, Chairs Vogel, Pshinsky, Schwank, Mel, and members of the committee. My name is Denise Coleman. I'm the State Conservationist with USDA NRCS. And it's a pleasure to be here today to talk about the conservation title of the 2018 Federal Farm Bill, the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, and the work that is being done by NRCS, EPA, the State Conservation Commission, local conservation partners such as conservation districts, and most importantly, Pennsylvania's agricultural producers. So today, I'm here to talk about, many years ago I came before you. Back in 2010, I started my position. And I didn't need these, but I need these now. So I'm going to read to you a little bit because there's a couple numbers here that I think you should take note of. Since 2010, NRCS has awarded over $464 million, nearly half a billion with a B, dollars, in cost share contracts in the Commonwealth, just in Pennsylvania alone. I'm excluding easement money that we pay. I'm excluding emergency watershed money that we put out. I'm excluding those kinds of funds, but I'm talking about straight cost share dollars. That means when it's cost share, the producers are coming in with a certain amount of money. And so as we come in with $500 million, most often producers are coming in with at least 25%. So that's $250 million, $250 million. Now, I can tell you that that doesn't come easy, and these practices are expensive and they involve a lot of time, technical assistance, and a lot of work and dedication on the producers to manage them. But most of our funding since that time has been devoted to an array of different natural resource concerns, soil health, wildlife, but in reality, most of it has been dedicated to nutrients. And so we have been focused on nutrient reduction since that time, and the federal funding comes through programs like the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, the Agricultural Management Assistance Act, the Conservation Stewardship Program, and Regional Conservation Partnership Program. So when you're talking about these federal funds and where they're going, what are they doing? On average, 80 to 85% of the funds that we give in NRCS, they're devoted to livestock, okay? That's where our local working groups at the county level are saying they want this money spent. They need the engineering assistance that NRCS oftentimes provides, but also works with the third-party vendors. And they want to address not only the storage capacity of manure, but how to apply that manure and how to apply commercial fertilizer responsibly on cropland acres. And so to give you an idea what this money has bought, before I started wearing these glasses, we've installed 560 ag waste storage systems, 342 stream crossings, and 2,171 square feet of heavy use areas. Funds continue to be targeted to key priority watersheds using the latest algorithms that we look at. We look at soil, its vulnerability, whether it's a leaching or runoff soil, and we apply that with the latest conservation practice information. So we know what's on the landscape, and we can see what's on the landscape. And when you overlay the soils, the soil vulnerabilities with the practices, we know, are the practices doing avoid, control, and trap? And if all three of those are working together, we can move on to the next watershed. We have been able to do that. And that precedes the water quality monitoring that happens and that's needed in the watershed, because when you're applying a system, you know that those soils and nutrients aren't going into the streams. If you're putting a filter, conservation tillage, and you're putting something that controls that water, like a waterway, you know that that farm's doing the best that they can. And so we move on to the next farm. So we feel that over time, we have been moving out into different watersheds. We continue to have high priority watersheds in Pennsylvania, but we've been able to move into different areas. We don't do this alone. We wouldn't do it without our partners, groups like the Alliance for Chesapeake Bay. Jenna came to us many, many years ago with the idea of a public-private partnership, and it was an excellent program. So thank you, Jenna, for the pioneering of that idea. Conservation districts, Pheasants Forever, PA Game Commission, all these groups are working in partnership with our NRCS field employees to deliver high-quality conservation services to Pennsylvania's farmers. Statewide, I'm pleased to announce that we have installed more than 324,000 practices and enhancements since 2011. Some of our most complex practices, like ag waste storages and water control structures, were installed in partnership with conservation districts and non-governmental organizations like the Alliance, who have used a combination of NRCS, EPA, state ACAP, Growing Greener, and private corporation funding to subsidize the immense costs of these practices. To tell you a little bit about what these practices cost, I just did a baseline, and in 2019, the average ag waste storage system, now when you put an ag waste storage system in for a dairy farm, you have a lot of other practices that you're putting around it. But that was costing about $111,000 prior to COVID. Now it's about up to $148,000. And so what happens is our money does rise within the federal community. We do take into account inflation, but also the producer's costs rise as well. So it's really important to have programs like ACAP that match our federal funding. And that we need that strong conservation partnership at the local level. Annually, we have now, with the IRA money and our Farm Bill money, we're very thankful. We have about $60 million coming into Pennsylvania just in those cost share programs. We have other money coming in, but just for the cost share programs for the ag producers, it's about $60 million. It does take about a full contingent of NRCS, state, district, and non-governmental employees to continue to meet these water quality milestones. And leveraging, like what is being done in Hershey, is really important because we're working with Hershey. Land O'Lakes has submitted a regional conservation partnership application to leverage that federal funding. This year, Congress made and the department made available $1.5 billion for RCPP funding, this regional conservation partnership money that takes federal money and leverages it with state money as well as private money. To date, we have 8 entities from Pennsylvania who have put applications in for this $1.5 billion. I don't know where the decisions will be. I expect next month that we'll hear, but I'm very happy to say that we have very strong proposals from Pennsylvania partners, including State Conservation Commission. In the past, this money has leveraged $107 million have been brought by other partners, state and other entities, and we've leveraged $76 million in federal money through this regional conservation program. We've had partners like PDA, the Chesapeake Conservancy, the Nature Conservancy, Maryland and Virginia Cooperatives, the U.S. Endowment for Forestry, Berks County Conservation District, and the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay. These matching funds bring in dollars beyond the traditional Farm Bill dollars and really leverage this federal money. The other thing that happens with these partnerships is that we get real boots on the ground, right? I have a contingent of about 275 employees and affiliates out there working daily to get conservation on the ground. But these agreements leverage more partners, and they bring not only conservation planners, technicians, engineers, all those things that the farmer themselves don't have to pay for. So, and just as a final note, this year and last year, Chief Cosby, who was here in Pennsylvania in Berks County, had the opportunity to sign an MOU, and I think that's probably been one of the most fundamental and important MOUs. We signed it with the State Conservation Commission and Penn State University. And we have signed with the center to make sure that all the people out in the field are installing practices that meet the highest technical standards, that do the right thing, our practices put in the right place at the right time. And so for this reason, we're really proud of the partnership that we have with State Conservation Commission. We thank you for the money to allow them to match with us. We have trained over, I think it's been about 400 employees to date. And so we're really happy to keep another generation of conservation planners and partners out there moving on the landscape. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much to all our testifiers. This time we're going to start with member questions, and I'm going to start. Ms. Crack, when you said the $1 million that Hershey's put up for this, how is that grant money? How is that? Is it Land O'Lakes' sole discretion to decide what farmers get it? Do farmers apply through Land O'Lakes? Just how does that work quickly?
Sure. So Jenna can certainly share more about that as well. Closer. Sorry. It's a great question. I think the benefit of our dollars is they tend to be more flexible. The money is going directly from Hershey, and it is above and beyond the contracts that we have with Land O'Lakes for the milk. So the money is going to Land O'Lakes. They are able to provide it to the farmers. I think Jenna can share more details about how the projects are developed, but it's really looking at who is ready to put these projects on the ground and committed to doing it, and our funds have been able to be more flexible so it can be designed the way that the farmer wants it to be done. Sometimes, and I think another benefit, our private dollars are more accessible to plain sect farmers, folks that might not be as interested in federal funds. So in some cases, I think projects may be funded almost entirely through private dollars. When we're able to match, we do that, and the folks really doing that work are Jenna and her team with the Alliance. So if you want to add anything else, go for it.
Thank you. So a portion is passing through the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay, and a portion is passing through Land O'Lakes. The breakdown was based off of which practices it makes the most sense. For the really high-tech practices that are going to require a lot of support from the co-op, it made sense for that money to just flow directly through Land O'Lakes. For the funding that would be supported best by more of a traditional technical service provider, the funding for those practices is coming through the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay, because our role is traditionally to bring in NRCS districts or private TSPs to help the farmer through the installation or management change process. And what was really interesting that we didn't actually cover, a unique piece of this and the flexibility that we were able to build with EPA, is that Hershey's greatest priority at this time is actually greenhouse gas emission reductions. So their $1 million in match is going specifically to practices that are going to give the greatest bang for our buck when it comes to GHG, whereas EPA's funding came out of a pot that really needed to focus on water quality. So Hershey's $1 million is focusing on GHG, and then EPA allowed us to match with money that's going to focus on both GHG and water quality. So that's really what was special about this partnership, is that we were able to find practices that would work for our farmers, but also really helped meet everyone's high-level goals as well.
Thank you. At this time, Senator Schwank for a question.
Thank you, Senator Vogel, and thank you to our panel and everybody who is here today. This is really informative, and I don't know who put the panel together, but you know, nice job, Natalie. Each of you have something to offer and helping me to understand, and I think all of us, how these partnerships really work and the flexibility that's there. Quick story that I have to tell you. 2 weeks ago, I was in Maryland for a Council of State Governments meeting, and I had an opportunity to meet the governor of Maryland. And after we got through, you know, the niceties, this is who I am, State Senator Judy Schwank from Berks County, I said, so what about that grade on the Chesapeake Bay? What do you think? And he lit up. He was just thrilled to talk about you know, what this means. He's taken a personal interest in certainly promoting the Bay and the health of the Bay, but he was very, very pleased. And I was pleased because it seems like for a number of years, we didn't get the credit that we deserved for what we were building in terms of conservation practices in Pennsylvania that's making the difference now that we're seeing. It takes time, right, to see those results. So thank you to all of you for what you've been able to do. You've mentioned, I've heard a lot of $1 million, you know, thrown about here. There's a lot of money that we're talking about among each of you, and certainly the commitment, the personal commitment that farmers are making. What, you know, and look at what we've done as a state legislature in our last budget, putting more money into ACAP, which, by the way, for everybody to know, that is the Agricultural Conservation Assistance Program. We throw those acronyms around, but maybe we should explain them once in a while. But that, as well as the Ag Innovation Fund, what's next for us in terms of a legislature? Maybe it's in terms of best practices. Maybe it's more than just money. How would you ask us to devote our resources and our efforts in terms of making these improvements, and ultimately not only improving our environment, but helping guys like Brett make more money? Any thoughts?
I'm particularly interested in, as we continue to prioritize funding, ways that we can bring in the private sector. So specifically creating pots that incentivize or require match from the private sector, I think would be really ideal. And I think there's really interesting ways to, as I mentioned in my testimony, to really look at ag as the full supply chain. So our dairy cooperatives are doing amazing, amazing things. Maryland Virginia Milk Producers Cooperative just opened up their first processing plant in Pennsylvania. They'll be celebrating that, I think, later this week. There's just a lot of wonderful opportunity for deeper engagement with the private sector, and I think a really easy way to do that would be to build in more ways to incentivize those dollars to match our dollars, Pennsylvania dollars.
Thank you. Senator Yaw for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really don't have a question. I guess I have a couple of comments. Everybody has mentioned, or several people have mentioned, the Chesapeake Bay Commission. I happen to be a member of the Chesapeake Bay Commission and have been for a number of years, and so to see the Bay improve is it really is a very positive experience to go through. Senator Martin is also a member of the commission, and Senator Martin happens to chair the Senate Appropriations Committee, so I have to give a shout out to him to help. He's the one I'll tell you, if you're grading us, to tell you the truth, I asked for $100 million, and we only got 50. So I apologize for that, but in any event, the important part, and Adam Ortiz, I know from EPA, will confirm this, is the important part of this is it's a dedicated funding stream. And that has always been the problem with Pennsylvania and what Pennsylvania has been doing. We have not had a dedicated funding stream. So we were successful in getting one, and the way it's put together, it will continue, and I think that that's a real plus. We've talked a lot about ACAP, and of course a significant amount of this money will go into the ACAP program. But I'd just like to say this, we've talked about farmers, and the farmers in my district goes all the way to the New York border. And to be very honest about it, when you talk to those people, their orientation is towards the Finger Lakes and the Great Lakes. It is not towards the Chesapeake Bay. And that's fine. So the way when we kind of changed the message in talking to them and to say, and not to say you need to do this to help with the bay. I don't even talk about that anymore. All we talk about is, here's what you need to do. We need to clean up our own water, and if we do that, then we don't need to worry about what happens downstream. And believe it or not, the farmers are the real heroes here. They have said, fine, we understand that. We want to make our operation environmentally friendly, clean up the water, and do all those things. And it's been an amazing success story. And so I was happy to hear the grade about the bay, and at our next board meeting, which is in September, I think in Norfolk, I'm sure it'll be a point of discussions. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Rothman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lots of chairmen. Thank you for the panel. Great panel. First of all, Brett, I think you get the gold medal for the fastest testimony, so congratulations. And by the way, I took a tour of the Rhineford operations and farm last month, and thank you for taking your time to show me around, and what an impressive operation you have. And Natalie, thank you so much, and Hershey, for helping them, because what they're doing is groundbreaking and will change, not just help your business, but obviously help the environment. And Natalie, I have to point out, Milton Hershey figured out how to democratize chocolate by adding a key ingredient, the secret ingredient, which is milk. So don't ever stop putting milk in chocolate. Good. Secretary Wolfgang, I recently found out that my mother joined my father. I'm going to come from a long line of C students who graduated from Penn State. And I also was a C student in undergrad, so C's are good.
You can certainly celebrate that.
C's hire A students, by the way.
Absolutely.
And for Administrator Ortiz and for all of you, I have a bill in the Senate Bill 1090 that deals with the way we test water for stormwater management. And the idea originally came from, and I think she has a companion bill, my colleague from Cumberland County, Representative Gleim, who has House Bill 207. So Senate Bill 1090, House Bill 207. We need to recognize the efforts that the farmers have made and the agricultural community have made in cleaning up our waters and in stormwater management, and not punish them. And I've pointed out that we often exempt the urban areas from the same requirements that we put on our agricultural areas, and I represent Perry County and Western Cumberland County and Northern Dauphin County. They are being punished in some ways for their efforts while we're exempting urban areas. So anything we can do to reform MS4 testing, to recognize the work that our agricultural community has done in cleaning up our waters and our water sources, but at the same time allowing us to concentrate on where we really do need remediation, because we all depend on those clean waters. So just a pitch for those two bills. And also, more and more municipalities, certainly I'm seeing in my district, have created stormwater fees, and we call them rain taxes, which is what I believe they are. And we need to exempt the agricultural community from paying these rain taxes, especially where you imagine you have a 200-acre farm and yet you're paying for the barns and the impervious areas that you have on your site. So anything you can do to help with that too. And again, my colleague, Representative Gleim, has a bill for that. So thank you, and thank you all for being here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Rothman. Representative Mao.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I've always been one of these guys to just run right into the fire, but today, given the company I'm in, I think I'll just tiptoe through it. And Senator Rothman basically just hit on a lot of the points that I was going to hit on, and I think that they're so important, I need to say them again. This MS4 deal that was handed down, I think started with the EPA, is probably the bill of the most unintended consequences I've ever seen. And when it is handed down, EPA to our DEP to our local communities, in those transitions of information, there's a lot lost in the middle, and a lot of our townships, I won't say boroughs because I don't know of too many farms and boroughs, but a lot of our townships have no idea how to implement it. And a lot of our townships are abusing it. In the last hearing we just left, we heard how we're losing small farms day after day after day. And our small farmers have implemented the BMPs. They're doing everything that they can. As a matter of fact, they're doing way more than their fair share, and we're expecting them to take it out of their profits, which they do. And when we have laws of unintended consequences without instruction that reaches our local communities, and you develop an environmental engineer's dream come true, is basically what just happened here. He can go out and do anything and tell the township supervisors or commissioners, this is what you need to do, and they don't know any better, and they take his word for it. And now I've got in my communities MS4 that's been implemented, where I've got farmers that are struggling, that are trying to keep the farm alive, paying 5 digits a year. That's over $10,000 a year, because they don't just, on residential homes, they implemented, let's say, an $80 a year fee. But anything other than a residential home, they use the GIS system and calculate how much impervious surface you have. And you get billed based on that. And when you have a farmer that's spending a chunk of his profit on BMPs, and now you're going to hit him for $10,000 or more in MS4 fees, rain tax fee, whatever you want to call it, you're just, I mean, we're talking out of both sides of our mouth. In the last hearing, we hear somebody from the Department of Agriculture saying how we got to save farms, and then our own federal government implements MS4, which is costing our small farmers a ton of money. And in all reality, what is that money serving for the farmer? What is the farmer getting out of that? My township that I live in is building a park with MS4 money. And I've told them time after time, that's for sedimentation and erosion. It's not so you can build a playground. In one ear, out the other. A bill of unintended consequences like this is hurting some of our small farmers. And I don't get to sit in front of the regional administrator for DEP or for EPA very often, so I figured I'd take this opportunity to let it rip. Okay? So maybe some instruction and some accountability for our local governments to implement it correctly. No one here is against clean water. We all want clean water, and I love crabs. Okay? But if we're going to do this, let's do it right. And it's being abused, not implemented properly in a lot of cases, especially where I live. It's hit us hard, and it's hit our small farmers hard. So when a farmer thinks now about, well, how do I build this, 400-foot long chicken house or turkey house? Now he's got to think, how much is that going to cost me in MS4 fees a year? Can I really afford to do it? Did I make a point? I'm sincerely hoping I did, in hopes that the EPA does more instruction to our local government as to how to implement it and what it must be used for.
Message received, Mr. Chairman and Senator, and you and I always we get into the hot stuff every time we hang out. So
that's what it's all about, brother.
All right, so it's all good, and so the short answer is I would be pleased to engage in that conversation, but also step back a little bit. When those mandates came down, and this, we don't have to do that in history. I was at the local level, so I oversaw a county level MS4 permit. So we struggled with all of these challenges that we've heard, and Representative Gleim and I talked last year about it, and I welcome the opportunity to engage in a conversation. There's a crux of an issue that we have to address, and that is that pollution from stormwater from urban and suburban runoff is increasing. Here, agricultural nutrient loading is coming down, but stormwater is going up. So we have to fix that problem. That's the crux of the problem. The implementation has been all over the map, in my estimation, in the last 10 years. And in my role overseeing the Mid-Atlantic states, lots of states have set it up in all sorts of ways. Some ways are working better than others. My observation is that Pennsylvania's is too decentralized. There's too many small units, and it's hard to generate enough fee or funding to implement projects at a scale. So, this isn't the time or place necessarily to get into the weeds, but the message is received, and I agree that there's reforms and streamlining so that it actually works. So, on behalf of EPA Region 3, we're happy to engage in that conversation. We're happy to share best practices in places that are making it work, because there's definitely a balance to be struck. But I appreciate, I had enough coffee because I knew you were going to be here, and I knew you were going to ask me tough questions. So I got some iced tea even because I wasn't sure if I was ready. But yeah, I appreciate you, and I appreciate the concerns that you all have raised, and we're happy to be a partner to help figure it out.
Thank you. We got to help our small farmers. Thank you.
Right on. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Tatak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here today. It's been mentioned a couple times, the Ag Innovation Fund, and I just wanted to point out two aspects of that. One is that there is a match requirement for that. So, this was developed in pretty close consultation with the Department of Agriculture and with an eye toward those public-private partnerships as well as private funds. So we're hopeful that that initial $10 million allocation for that program is actually going to be to grow and to leverage a much larger investment from the other groups. The second part of that is it was designed to be flexible, which you had mentioned earlier, not specifying what the innovation is per se, but creating a review board and an advisory board with the Conservation Commission and others, leaving it open-ended enough for new innovation, obviously, right? We don't know what's coming down the pike. So I just wanted to point out those two pieces, and I'm not going to step in it in quite the same way the chairman here did, but I did want to talk a little bit more and ask some question about the fugitive methane capture that you're doing on the dairy farm. That's a huge issue, not only in agriculture, but also in the oil and gas industry and others. So, I'm particularly interested in the potential of that as being a revenue source for biofuels, biodiesel, as well as just an environmental benefit. Is it now a potential revenue source? And if it is not, what would it take from us to make that a reality?
So good question. So it is absolutely a revenue source now, and it is exciting to see the technology being poured into farms to be able to capture additional revenue from their manure. And so our farm produces enough power for about 500 homes. We're paid by PP&L for the revenue, or for the extra electricity that we're producing. So it is a revenue source, but there's a lot more potential. So, electric generation produces a fairly decent amount of money right now because electric prices are high, but there's also opportunity to compress that gas and turn it into actually pipeline quality gas, which pays even more. And so that technology is still being developed, and it's exciting to see what's in the future, and there's definitely a lot of opportunity for farmers to capture money and make money by potentially by saving the environment, by taking a pollutant out of there and turning it into energy. It's a good question.
So is there anything that we can do to help move that forward? I mean, you have a network. I mean, you said you have 700 members or something in the Land O'Lakes Cooperative.
700 members here.
The more that are doing that, is there infrastructure that's needed in order to help make that happen, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, so yes. So to be able to capture methane from the NOR is a very expensive proposition to do. And so fortunately, everyone that's represented here has been part of our most recent project of capturing methane from our manure pit. But it takes a lot of private and public funding to make these work. And unfortunately, Pennsylvania, well, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, we have a lot of small farms. So it's going to take partnerships between farms to band together to build these infrastructure projects that can capture the methane from all their farms. A small farm, it's hard to justify the cost without significant investment from a public-private partnership.
Great. Thank you.
Representative Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Many years ago, a wise old politician came up to me and he said, listen, you're going to hear from a lot of people. They're going to blame you for a lot of things. But every now and again, somebody's going to come along and thank you for something you had nothing involved with to do. Just shake your head like you deserve it. I don't feel that you all hear thank you enough from the 13 million plus of us in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I just wanted to say thank you on our behalf for all you do, put up with and listen and deal with day in and day out. Thank you very much for what you do.
Thank you. Representative Friel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to follow on Representative Tatak's question, and my question really was around the economics of the investments in the farms and the scalability of it. So, after the initial capital investment, because I think when we're talking here, a lot of times we're blending operating costs and capital costs together. And I think it'd be really helpful for us to understand the difference between, the upfront investment, which is something I think us as a legislator and these partnerships can do, as long as there's an ROI on the operating side to say, how can we improve the margins or how can we improve the economics of the operation, especially since we have such small farms. So, Brett, I'll put you on the spot. I know it's a little bit of a follow-up on kind of what the scale works like, and how it relates to the environment and to the Chesapeake, too, is, both you and Doug have sat on something we talk about for a year and a half with DEP and Ag on FPRs and residual food processing waste, which I think your farm's unique in the sense that you can stabilize and manage it through digesters. So if you could touch on that, too, like on how we handle these products and what the economics are to your farm on this.
Yeah, definitely. So and I have just a few moments here, so I could get into this. That was a good question, Representative Friel. So the economics, the initial cost of an anaerobic digester for a farm our size is probably nowadays about $5 million, a lot of money. And so the economic return for producing enough power for about 500 homes is probably about $400,000 a year in electric generation income. It costs a lot of money to maintain a digester, and so the payback on if a farmer was investing $5 million of their own money and looking for a payback, you're looking at probably a 15-year return if you can make the system last that long. And so when we're doing investments, we're looking for a 5-year or less return. And so that requires a lot of private investment from companies like Hershey, if they're willing, and other companies, as well as federal and state funding. So, yeah, so it takes a lot of investment, and there is a return. You know, for our digester alone, getting into the food waste side of things, we've created 7 jobs that our farm would not have, plus three trucking jobs. So we have 10 jobs created from that $5 million investment. So there is a return. There is an economic return as well as from a labor standpoint. And I apologize. Your second part of
just the environmental impact of being able to manage both the manure and the residual food processing waste in terms of it. Is it better soil management? Does it help? You know.
Yeah. So from, and I know you and I were on a committee together, and so from the FBR standpoint, you know, a digester is a better way to manage food waste rather than land applying it without processing it. And so from an environmental standpoint, food waste creates about 3 times more methane than manure does. And so rather than putting it into a landfill where all that is released to the atmosphere, we're able to capture that and turn it into something valuable, which is electricity or compressed natural gas. So there is a tremendous environmental benefit to installing manure management practices like digesters and covered lagoons. And I think the investment is worth it from an environmental standpoint, and we're starting to be able to make it worth it from an economic standpoint. And so I think there's a bright future in conservation, especially when it comes to manure management.
Thank you. Representative Kincaid.
I think I'm the last one standing between us and lunch, so this is sort of appropriate because Senator Vogel and I are the co-chairs of the Hunger Caucus. And, you know, so I guess, you know, it's more of a comment, but, you know, I appreciate that we are talking about conservation, and our farmers are fundamentally the most conservation-focused people that I've met in this job, and I think it's something that a lot of people don't recognize, that our farmers are probably more environmentally friendly than a lot of even environmentalists, because it's their livelihood, it's their legacy, and, you know, understanding the needs in that capacity. So I really just wanted to you know, highlight the fact that you know, we have a lot of farmers that are dealing with a lot of issues in conservation in terms of predation of their own products and with deer populations. And so I actually just wanted to highlight, Randy Ferguson is here from Hunters Sharing the Harvest. And when we're talking about managing deer populations and, you know, the impact that has on people's ability to manage their land and erosion, and all of this is interconnected, and we end up talking a lot in silos about, you know, conservation over here and food insecurity over here. And so I appreciate that Randy's here, because this is a connection where we're talking about conservation, we're conserving land, we are protecting our food you know, access and our food supply, and Hunters Sharing the Harvest actually provides thousands of pounds of venison to our charitable food network. And so anybody who's here who doesn't know Randy, I would just suggest getting to know him, because agriculture partners with the Hunters Sharing the Harvest is huge. It feeds a lot of really hungry Pennsylvanians every year. And the more that we can start to connect conservation with food insecurity, with securing our food supply, and stop talking in silos, I think the better we are in terms of making sure that we are supporting our farmers from every direction. So thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Representative Paszynski for some final remarks.
Thank you very much, Senator, and thank you to all of you for your great work and your experience to help us guide us. And this collaboration that we have together, because of Senator Vogel, Senator Schwank, Chairman Mao, and all our members, we want to know what we need to do to help. And the way we do that is this collaboration. That is absolutely critical. You are all not only experts in your field, you're on the job day in, day out. I want to ask all of you, and I know the time doesn't allow for us today. That's not what I'm asking for. I'm asking each of you, if you had the power, nothing was going to interfere with what you want to do. Give me your top 3 things that you would do to improve our process and to continue to do the good work we're doing. The science involved is absolutely exciting. Who would have ever thought there's value, financial dollars, in the minerals from waste coal and now in manure? So we're on a precipice of doing something very special. And we are here to learn from you so that if it is a legislative issue, we want to try to make sure we do it right. So I'm asking each one of you, if you would, to get your top 3. Here's what I would do if I was in charge to improve our process. And again, we couldn't do it without the cooperation of Senator Vogel, Senator Schwank, Chairman Mao, and all the members of our committee. We truly care about the ag industry. We respect it. We understand the importance of it to Pennsylvania, and our doors are open. So I want to thank you all very much for being here. Senator, always a pleasure. And with that, I just want to say that Representative Cook definitely was brown-nosing on that C+.
So I want to thank you once again to all our testifiers, all our committee members who came today to Ag Progress Days. Thank Penn State for hosting us again here today. And thank you all for coming. Enjoy the rest of your day. Be sure to have a milkshake, and see you at the luncheon in a few minutes. Thank you. Have a good day.
Good job, man.